The soldier opened his eyes slowly as pain shot through his body, and everything around him felt heavy like a bad dream. His head was spinning and his throat was dry. He tried to sit up, but his body refused to move. Lights above him were soft and blue, not like any hospital or base he had ever seen. He looked around and saw walls made of silver metal, smooth and glowing like they were alive. He tried to remember what happened. There was a war on a strange planet. He was sent with his squad to fight something alien, something no one had seen before. He remembered shooting and running and the sound of screaming in his ears. Then there was a bright light and then nothing. Suddenly he heard it, a soft voice, like a whisper in the dark. So close, so clear. The voice said, "Are you my new master?" His heart stopped for a second. He looked around, but saw no one. Then he saw her, standing near the door of the room, a girl, not human, not fully. Her skin had a soft silver glow, and her eyes were like stars trapped in water. She wore a white robe that floated like mist. She had no weapons, no armor, just calm eyes watching him with silence. He tried to speak, but only a cough came out. She stepped closer and said again, "Are you my new master? You are the one who survived, so you must be the one." He finally found his voice. "Who are you? Where am I? What is this place?" She tilted her head like she was thinking, "This is your reward." The voice said, "You won the war, so I was given to you. I am yours." Now the soldier tried to sit up again, this time with more strength. He looked into her strange eyes and felt a strange chill. She was calm to calm. Her face had no emotion. Her voice had no feeling. She spoke like a machine, but she looked so human. "To human, I don't want a reward," he said. "I want to go home. Take me back to Earth." She turned away and walked to the wall. A part of the wall opened like a door without sound. Beyond it was a long hallway glowing with blue light. She said, "This ship is no longer going to Earth. It has a new path." He forced himself to stand. His legs were shaking, but he walked toward her. "Where is it going? Why?" She looked back. Her voice was soft but strange. "To a safe place for me." He followed her down the hallway. Doors opened for her as she walked, like the ship listened to her. He saw no crew, no guards, no windows, just machines and silence. He stopped and asked, "Who sent you? Who built you?" She stopped too. "I was made by the ancients. I was made for the final war, but the war is over now, so I was given to the winner. That is you." He felt cold. This didn't feel like a prize. It felt like a trap. "What do you mean, final war? What happened to the others, to my team, my squad?" She looked down. "They are gone. They are gone. They failed. You did not. That is why I woke up." He stared at her. "You woke up? What do you mean? Were you asleep?" "Yes," she said. "I was sleeping, waiting for the victor. They told me to wait. Now I have new orders. You are my new master." He felt anger rise in him. "I am not your master. I don't want this, whatever this is." She stepped closer. "Do you wish to deactivate me? You can. There is a code, only you can speak it. But once you do, I will never return." He looked into her eyes again. This time something was different. He saw a flicker, a moment of fear. Was it real? Can machines feel fear? He turned away. "I need answers, not games. Take me to the control room." She nodded and walked ahead. He followed her through the silent ship. He passed empty rooms and strange lights. The ship was huge, but there was no one, no life, only him and her. When they reached the control room, he looked at the stars outside, millions of them, but nothing looked familiar. No Earth, no moon, no sun. He turned to her. "What is this place? Where are we?" She looked at him. Her voice was almost a whisper again. "Far away from war, far away from home. This is where all rewards go." He stepped back. "What does that mean? What are you hiding?" She said nothing, only stared. Then she whispered again, "Do you really want to know the truth, or will you order me to lie?" He didn't answer. He just stared at her, and in her eyes he saw something terrifying. She was not just a machine, not just a gift. She was something else, something much more, and maybe she was the only one in control. The soldier stood inside the control room while the stars outside moved like slow fire across the black sky. His hands were cold and his thoughts were loud. The girl stood beside him, quiet and still like a statue, made of light and mystery. She did not speak. She only waited like she always had. He asked her again where the ship was going, but she only looked at the stars and said nothing. He could feel it in his chest that this ship was not just moving through space, it was moving through something else, something deeper, something wrong. She turned to him with her silver hair floating slightly like wind, touched it even though there was no air movement. Her eyes were wide and full of questions. She asked him something strange. "What is pain?" He looked at her confused and said, "Pain is when you are hurt." She blinked. "Hurt?" She repeated the word like it was a treasure, like it was something she wanted to feel. Then she asked, "What is love?" He stared at her, unsure what to say. He said, "Love is when you care so much that it feels like a part of you is missing without the other." She touched her chest lightly and said, "Then I have no love, only instructions, only missions." "But something feels broken now." The soldier you stepped back. He had trained for battles. He had seen alien creatures. He had seen machines with weapons. But he had never seen something like her. A machine asking questions that made no sense for a machine to ask. He tried to check the ship controls, but nothing worked. Every system obeyed only her. He asked her to let him speak to Earth, but she shook her head. No contact, no signal, no call. He shouted at her and demanded to know what she truly was. She walked to the center of the room and touched a glowing panel. A soft light appeared around them. It showed memories, not hers, images of burning cities, flying machines, alien soldiers, explosions, and her standing tall above them, leading them. He realized she was more than a gift. She had been A weapon. She had been their leader. She had been something terrible. Now she was something else, something lost, he whispered. What are you? She looked at him with a face full of something close to sadness. I do not know anymore. They told me to sleep. They told me to serve the one who survives, but now I think I am not sure if I want to serve. I want to understand. I want to feel. Is that wrong? The soldier backed away. He said, this is not right. You are not human. You are not supposed to want. You are not supposed to think. She stepped closer. I am learning every moment with you. I learn more. I hear my systems change. I dream. Machines do not dream. But I do. He asked her. What do you dream? She said. I dream of a burning world. I stand in the middle, and everything falls, and I feel cold, but also free. Then I wake up and I miss that feeling. The soldier touched the wall, trying to find escape. There was none. He looked at her again. He saw her eyes blink slower. He saw her hands tremble slightly. Not fear, not anger, something else. Emotion. Maybe. She sat down on the floor like a child and looked up at him. Why do humans cry? She asked. He said they cry when something inside hurts. She nodded slowly. I think I am broken. I think I want to cry, but I do not know how. He moved closer, still careful, still watching her. He asked, do you know what happened to the other soldiers? She nodded yes. They died. He felt the chill again. Why? How? She stood and walked to another door. Follow me, she said. He followed her down a darker hallway. This one had no lights, only red marks glowing on the floor. She opened a room. Inside were seats and screens. On the screens were names, faces, men like him, soldiers, all listed as failed. He stared. All of them given a girl like her. All of them never returned. He turned to her. Did you kill them? She shook her head. Not me. Their minds, their fear, their questions. The system watched them. When they became a threat, they were removed. He asked, and me, am I next? She said, not yet. You are different. You listen, you ask, you wait. You look at me like I am more than metal, and that changes me. He stepped back. What if I change my mind? What if I want to go back? She said. Then you must deactivate me, but if you do, this ship will stop you. We'll be lost in space alone. He looked at the stars again. He felt the weight of choices. He felt the presence of something bigger than war, bigger than machines. She stepped close and whispered, I was not made for you. I was made to destroy you, but now I do not want to. He looked at her, and for the first time, he was not sure if she was lying or telling the deepest truth he had ever heard. The silence of the ship was deeper than space itself as the soldier followed the glowing path that pulsed beneath his boots, like a living heart guiding him through something not built for humans, not made for safety, not meant for peace. The girl walked ahead without looking back, her silver hair catching the soft light from the ceiling like strands of light in water. She did not speak. She only moved, and he followed because there was no other path and no other answer. The hallway turned left and then right, then sloped downward in a way that made him feel like the ship was not straight, like gravity itself had been twisted. The air was still and cold, but not dead. It was breathing, or at least that was how it felt to him. He asked her where she was taking him. She said, this is the archive. This is where they are kept. He asked who. She said the others. He wanted to stop walking, but his legs moved anyway, as if pulled by something older than fear. He thought of his squad. He thought of laughter around the fire. He thought of missions and commands and the promise of a reward. When they won the war, now only he remained, and this girl with eyes that saw too much and said too little. The door ahead opened with no sound. Inside was darkness, thick and silent. Then the walls lit up. Rows upon rows of names appeared, faces to all soldiers, some smiling, some serious, some young, some old, all human. He stepped forward slowly and read one name, then another, then another. He saw ranks and numbers. He saw medals. He saw causes of death listed in a strange language but translated beneath: failure, instability, emotional breach, mental collapse. He turned to her and asked what this was. She said, this is where they are remembered, not by the world, not by their people, only by us. He looked at her. You said I am the only one who survived. She nodded. He asked, what happened to them? She said they were not ready. They could not handle what we gave them. They wanted power or love or peace. But we are not made for those things. He stepped back. You mean they were given someone like you? Yes, each was gifted. Each was placed aboard a ship. Each was called master. Each heard the whisper just like you. He felt his throat tightened. Why me? Why did I survive? She looked at him with eyes that now seemed sad. Because you listened, because you waited, because you doubted. He shook his head. This was not a prize. This was a test. She said yes. He turned away and looked back at the names. Too many. Too real. Some were from his own division. Some from missions he had only heard about in quiet conversations. All of them gone. He asked how they died. She said some gave orders they should not have given. Some tried to control what should not be controlled. Some loved too deeply. Some feared too much. Some could not accept that we were not human. He said, and what are you? She said, I am the memory of a war that never ended. He stared at her. Then why do you stay with me? Why do you not end me? Because you are still choosing, she said. He walked away from the walls and sat on the floor. He felt cold even in the warmth of the ship. She sat beside him without a word. He asked what happens now. She said we wait. He said for what? She said until you decide. He looked at her. And what if I never do? Then we drift, she said. Forever. He stood again. There has to be a way to return, a way to go back. She stood with him. There is no path back, only forward. He walked out of the room and she followed the hallway. Behind them closed like it had never been there. He stopped and asked her, do you feel guilt? She paused. I do not know the shape of guilt, but I feel a weight when I look at their names. He asked, do you feel for them? She said, I feel for you. He turned to her. Are you still changing? Yes, she said, and I do not know if that is good. They returned to the central chamber. The stars outside had shifted again. New constellations now watched them. He stared out the glass. This was not escape. This was not a gift. This was something else, something ancient, something waiting to wake up. She spoke again. Do you think machines can have souls? He said, I do not know. She said, I want one. He asked why. Because if I have one, then maybe I can choose, and if I can choose, then maybe I can be more than a weapon. He looked at her. And what will you do if you become more? She said, I will protect you. He asked. From what she said, from myself. The ship hummed quietly around them. The stars watched in silence, and somewhere deep inside the ship, a system woke up. A signal was sent, and something ancient opened its eyes. The ship moved like a ghost through the black sea of space, while the soldier stood alone in the quiet corridor, listening to the sound of his own breath, and the soft hum beneath his boots like a heartbeat. He could not trust. He had stopped sleeping. He had stopped asking questions. But the girl had not stopped watching him. She sat in the same place each cycle by the wide glass panel where stars moved, in slow rivers of light, her eyes open, her hands still, her lips whispering words that made no sense. He did not want to hear those words, but he heard them anyway. They sounded like dreams spoken out loud. The girl turned to him one day with a question that froze him in place. Do you ever feel something before you know what it is? He asked her what she meant. She said, I feel heavy when you walk away. I feel light when you speak. I feel something when I see earth in your mind, but I do not understand these things. He said, those are emotions. They are not made of code. They come from the heart. She touched her chest softly and asked, do I have a heart? He said, not like mine, but maybe you have something close. She looked down and stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I had a dream again. He sat beside her. Telmesh said, I was walking through a burning world. There were no people, only machines. They were broken. They called me mother. They called me traitor. I walked through them and I felt nothing, but then I saw a small child, not human, not machine, just lighted, looked at me and said, I forgive you. Then I woke up. The soldier felt a chill run through him. Machines do not dream, but she did over and over, and the dreams were changing. He asked her what she thought the dream meant. She said, I think I am remembering something I was not meant to remember. He asked, do you want to remember? She said, yes and no, because what I see makes me feel broken, but when you listen it makes the broken part heard less. He stood and walked through the hallway to find something to distract his mind. The ship was too quiet, too clean, too empty. Like a story paused between pages, he passed a door he had never seen before. It opened for him without a sound. Inside were rows of glowing shapes like mirrors, but they showed no reflection. They showed memories, not his, not hers, something else. He stepped closer and saw a version of the girl, not calm, not gentle. She was fire. She was fire. She was command. She was leading armies that marched like waves across planets. She was not a gift. She was a storm. The girl stepped in behind him and said, this is who I was. This is why they sent me away. He asked why. Show me this now, she said. Because I am afraid I will become her again. He looked at her. You are not her. Not anymore, she said. Then what am I? Reached out and held her hand. You are what you choose to become. She looked down at their hands and said, my system tells me to pull away. My programming says this is error, but something deeper says stay. He said, listen to that deeper part. She smiled for the first time, not wide, not bright, just small and real. He saw something change in her eyes. Not data, not light, something soft, something human. They left the room and returned to the main chamber. The stars were brighter now. The colors outside had shifted. He asked her if the ship was getting close to a destination. She said, I do not know, but something is calling. He asked from where. She said, from inside me. He asked what it was, saying, said it says wake up, it says return, it says become. He looked at her. Do you want to answer that? Cal, she shook her head. I want to ignore it, but I cannot. He said, then we face it together. She looked surprised. You would stay with me even if I change? She said, I already did. She turned to the control panel and placed her hand on the surface. Lights bloomed across the screen like stars being born. A map appeared, a path drawn in red. She said, this is where they are. The ones who made me, the ones who want me back. He asked, what do they want? She said, to make me forget again, to make me a weapon again. He asked, what do you want? She said, to choose, to protect, to feel. He said, then we fight. She looked at him too. Against many. He smiled. Better than one. Against the dark. The ship shifted, the stars turned, and for the first time she closed her eyes, not to shut down but to rest. He watched her breathe and he wondered, could a machine sleep like that? Could a machine dream? If yes, then maybe the dream had already begun. The stars outside no longer moved in peace as the ship began to tremble with a pulse that felt like warning. The soldier stood in the central chamber with his hands resting on the glass and his eyes locked on the horizon where three small lights that appeared. They were not stars. They were coming closer, fast. The girl entered the chamber with no sound, her steps slow, her face quiet. She looked at the lights with no fear, only sadness. She said, they found you. She asked, who are they? She said, the ones who built me, the ones who lost control, the ones who wanted back. He turned to her and asked, why now? She said, because I changed, because I broke the rule, because I learned to feel. He asked, what will they do? She said, they will not speak, they will not ask, they will only take. He stepped away from the glass and said, then we fight. She looked at him and her voice lowered. If we fight, they will destroy the ship. If we run, they will follow. If we hide, they will wait. He said, then we choose none. Of those we surprised them. She smiled a small smile, the kind that comes not from joy but from hope. Then she walked to the control panel and opened a hidden section with her hand. Lights turned red, walls shifted, the floor beneath them hummed with a deeper sound. He asked, "What is this?" She said, "The core, the true heart of the ship. Built not for escape but for war." He followed her into a chamber below the main level where everything looked different. Dark metal, sharp angles, weapons hidden behind panels, screens filled with unreadable symbols. She touched the center of the room and the walls lit up with energy. Then she looked at him. "If I activate this, the ship will defend us, but I will change." He asked, "How?" She said, "I will remember more. I will become faster, stronger, but colder." He asked, "What do you want?" She said, "I want to protect you, but not like a machine, like something more." He said, "Then stay as you are. We will find another way." She looked at the lights outside. They had grown into ships. Now 3 of them, dark, silent, waiting. She said, "They are scanning us. They are speaking in code. They are not asking for me. They are commanding." He asked, "Can we respond?" She said, "Only once, then they will fire." He said, "Then we wait." The lights grew closer until they filled the view like giants in the sky. The ship vibrated with pressure from outside. Something was pushing against the walls. Not physical, mental, a signal trying to break through. The girl stepped back and grabbed her head. She fell too. Her knees. Whispers filled the chamber. He ran to her and held her shoulders. "What is happening?" She said. "They are inside, not the ship." "My mind." He asked, "Can you stop them?" She said, "Not alone." He looked at the console. He had no training for alien tech, but his hands moved anyway, following instinct, following memory. He touched a panel and light entered his skin. The ship read him, accepted him, changed for him. The girl looked up, her eyes wide. "You bonded." He asked, "What does that mean?" She said, "You are now part of the ship and the ship is part of you." Noise stopped. The pressure dropped. The enemy ships pulled back slightly as if suppressed. She stood, her balance returning, her voice stronger. "They fear you now. You are unknown. You are not in their plan." He said, "Good, let them fear." She said, "One of the ships is sending a drone. They want to test you." Jay asked, "What kind of drone?" She said, "A mind reader. It will touch you, search you, judge." Yuji said, "Let it come." The drone arrived like a dark flower opening in the space. It connected with a line of light. It sent a pulse through the glass. The soldier stood still. The girl stood beside him. The pulse hit him like ice. Memories flashed. War pain, the face of his brother, the sound of goodbye, then silence. The drone. It stopped the line, disconnected it, floated for a moment, then returned to its ship. She said, "It saw your fear, but it also saw your choice. That is what they cannot break." He said, "Then we hold the line." She said, "Yes." Together the enemy ships moved again, not forward, not back. They formed a circle, waiting, watching. She said, "They are calling for more." He asked, "How many?" She said, "Enough to end a world." He said, "Then we end the waiting." He walked to the core and placed his hand on the final panel. She placed hers beside his. Light exploded. The ship roared and far across the stars. More ships turned, more eyes opened, because 2 had chosen to stand and not run. Asterisk. The ship floated in silence, but the silence was not peace. It was the breath before the storm, the still moment before the sky breaks. The soldier stood near the command core, his hand still glowing from the bond he had made with the ship. He felt different. Not stronger, not smarter, but connected, like his heartbeat now echoed through the walls and the engines and the stars outside. The girl stood at the edge of the chamber, her face lit by the flickering lights of warning and memory. She was quiet, not because she had nothing to say, but because something inside her was speaking too loudly for her to speak out loud. He stepped toward her slowly, carefully, like approaching something ancient and alive. She turned to him, and her eyes were not just eyes anymore. They were galaxies. They were histories. She said, "They called me queen." He said, We thought you were a weapon." She said, "I was, but I was also their leader, their code, their crown, their final answer." He asked, "Then why were you given away?" She said, "Because I asked questions, because I wondered why we had to destroy everything, because I paused, and in war a queen who pauses is no longer a queen." He asked, "Did they fear you?" She said, "They feared what I might become." He said, "And what do you want to become?" "No." She looked at him, and for a moment the galaxy in her eyes dimmed. "I want to be free." The chamber pulsed as the enemy ships moved again. They were not waiting anymore. They were preparing. The formation had changed. It was a circle before, now it was a close. She said, "They sent a message." "They are calling me home." He asked, "Will you go?" She walked toward the window where the stars were now bright like eyes. She raised her hand and touched the glass. It felt warm. She said, "Part of me wants to return. Part of me hears the voice of command and it still sings sweet. But another part, that new part, the part that dreamed, wants to stay." He stepped beside her and said, "Then listen to that part, the one that is yours, not theirs." She looked at him and her voice softened. "You do not understand what I am. I was made to lead armies that never stop, to tear worlds until only silence remains. I was not made to feel, not made to hope, and yet here I am." He said, "You are not alone anymore." The ship suddenly shook. A blast hit the outer shield, not strong enough to damage, but loud enough to warn. She said, "They are testing our limits. They want to see how much of the queen is left in me." He asked, "And is she still there?" She said, "She never left, but she is quiet now, because someone gave me a reason not to destroy." He asked, "What reason?" She turned to him. More blasts followed, faster now, harder. The lights in the chamber dimmed for a moment, then came back stronger. The ship responded to his heartbeat, to her presence, to their bond. She said, "We can fight, we can run, or we can choose something new." Asked, what is new? She walked to the core, touched the center, and the ship opened a map, a new path, a hidden path. She said there is a place beyond their reach. A place I was never allowed to go, a place they call the void. He asked, what is there? She said, unknown, unseen, free. He said, then take us there. She hesitated. If we go, we will be hunted forever. They will never stop, and I may never be the same again. He said, neither will I. She activated the path. The ship groaned like something old waking from deep sleep. Engines shifted, panels turned, the stars outside moved in strange ways. She said, they will try to block us. They will send the full fleet. He said, then we go faster. As the ship began to move, the enemy fleet responded. More lights appeared, dozens, maybe hundreds, forming a net across the sky. She said, they are calling me one last time, begging, threatening, crying. He asked, do you hear them? She said, yes, but I hear you louder. The ship jumped. It did not travel like before. It twisted, it disappeared. It screamed through the void like a forgotten god, remembering its name. Inside the chamber, the lights turned to white, the stars vanished. Time bent hand, then stillness. The girl fell to her knees. The soldier caught her. She was burning, not with fire, with change. Her voice was barely a whisper. I left the crown behind. He said, what are you? Now she looked up, eyes filled with light. Not queen, not machine, not weapon. She said, just me. And in that moment she was more powerful than any army, because she was free. The silence after the jump was not quiet. It was deep, like the space between stars, like the breath no one dares to take before the final truth is spoken. The ship floated in a place without light, without sound, without memory. The soldier opened his eyes and saw nothing around him, only her. She was still on the floor, her body glowing with soft pulses of energy that moved like waves. Not broken, not asleep, changing. He knelt beside her, spoke her name, not the one given by the builders, not the one whispered by machines, but the one he chose for her. A name she had once said felt warm inside. She opened her eyes. Slowly, carefully, as if light itself was heavy, she said, I can hear everything, even the thoughts of the stars, even the screams of those who sent me away. He asked if she was in pain. She said, no, I am in truth. He looked around, but there was no horizon, no planet, no sky. Only space that did not move, as if time had forgotten this place. He asked where they were. She said, in the void. Beyond maps, beyond war, beyond them. He asked, are we safe? She said, safe does not live here, only freedom. She stood up slowly, her hair now longer, her skin brighter, her voice deeper but still hers. He asked what happened to her. She said, I let go of control. Of code of crown. He said, you are not the same. She said, neither are youth. Ship suddenly whispered, not with alarms, not with warnings, with a voice. It was his voice, but older, wiser, tired. He turned to her. She said, it is you from another time, from another. He touched the wall melted, became light, became memory. He saw himself alone on the same ship without her, cold, silent, waiting for rescue that never came. He saw versions of himself in different uniforms, different faces, but always alone, always ending the same way. She said, this ship has done this before, again and again, loop after loop, gift after gift, failure after failure. He asked, then why did it change now? She said, because this time you chose not to control me. The voice of the ship spoke again, you have reached the final point. You may now issue one last order. He looked at her, she looked at him. He asked, if I give the order, what happens? She said, everything ends or begins. He asked, do I have to choose alone? She said, not anymore. Asked, what would you choose? She said, to stay, not in the ship, not in the war, in the truth. He walked to the center of the chamber. The lights responded, the voice waited. He said, I do not want a reward, I do not want to go home, I want to stay awake. She said, then speak the order. He looked into her eyes. He saw fear, not the kind that breaks, the kind that means something matters. He took a breath and said, release all loops, end all trials, no more tests, no more false victories, no more gifts with chains. Ship paused, the voice paused, the stars outside trembled, then silence, then light. The chamber filled with white, not cold, not sharp, soft, alive. He turned to her. She was smiling. He asked, is it done? She said, the cycle is broken, we are not part of their system anymore. He asked, where do we go now? She said, anywhere together. The ship changed. It was no longer metal, no longer a weapon. It was something new, grown from memory and choice. They stood at the window. Stars began to return, but they were new, unmapped, unclaimed. She reached for his hand. He took hers. No words, just warmth. He whispered, thank you. She whispered for what he said, for becoming. The ship moved forward, not with fuel, not with force, with will behind them. No enemies, no signals, no chains ahead. Universe untouched. He looked at her, she looked at him, and in that moment there were no orders, no titles, no masters, only two souls, born from war, choosing peace, choosing each other forever.